Yeah. In such industries that require so much attention to detail, where it's a fast-paced industry, where it's a fast-moving role, many women get caught up in that really difficult decision that they have to make, which is, do I go hell for leather with my career or do I have a baby? Now, I'm going to be totally vulnerable in this episode and to kick things off, because I always say to my guests that this is a really safe space and this is a place to celebrate our voices and to celebrate what we are doing with our careers, and not to shame anybody. And I want to prove that this is a safe space by putting myself into that category first and put myself in that position. And that is that I've been having questions lately from clients, non-clients, people of the industry, because I've now been married over a year. People are now asking the question, when are you having children, Roz? Or do you want children, Roz? And I'm like, I do. I really do. I can see myself like being like soccer mum, like head of the PTA meeting. I can see myself like, I'm busy now. Like I can see myself being like busy as a mum and doing everything, making cupcakes, designing like Halloween costumes. I can see myself doing it. But the challenge now is I like this, Roz, and I like working and I love my job and I love my business that I've built like from absolutely, that was my, that's my baby. And sometimes I guess the fear or the preconceived idea of me having a baby, I feel like is going to affect my job negatively. And then everyone else is like, no, Roz, what are you talking about? And I know it's probably just a really, if my mum listens to this show, she's going to like scream. She knows, she's like, Roz, can you stop? Like, she's just like, just have some babies, please. It's like, she'll hate me saying this, but here's the reality, guys. When you are a public figure, when you become well known, when you have a business out there, it's difficult to then say, okay, let's switch into mummy roles. But who am I to know what happens and what doesn't happen? I've brought in a very experienced person in this space, someone who has done it all, someone who has raised a beautiful family and still managed to achieve a phenomenal career. Now, it's not J-Lo, but it's close, okay, guys, right? If J-Lo can do it, we can all do it. But that's not realistic, right? We're looking at her on Instagram like, oh yeah, mate, but you've got loads of money and you've got probably 15 nannies taking care. But what about the real people, the everyday people? I want to hear today from Michelle Walsh from Together Money. Now, Michelle and I actually just crossed paths with each other very, very briefly. And didn't actually work together, but we just crossed. So she had just left as I was coming in, and then I left as she was coming in. I'm not sure if she's behind this whole like transaction of us coming in and out, but I think we're friends. That's not why we haven't worked together. But now we are working together in other different ways. So look, without further ado, I really just want to hear from Michelle now. How are you doing today, my love? Yeah. In such industries that require so much attention to detail, where it's a fast-paced industry, where it's a fast-moving role, many women get caught up in that really difficult decision that they have to make, which is, do I go hell for leather with my career or do I have a baby? Now, I'm going to be totally vulnerable in this episode and to kick things off, because I always say to my guests that this is a really safe space and this is a place to celebrate our voices and to celebrate what we are doing with our careers, and not to shame anybody. And I want to prove that this is a safe space by putting myself into that category first and put myself in that position. And that is that I've been having questions lately from clients, non-clients, people of the industry, because I've now been married over a year. People are now asking the question, when are you having children, Ros? Or do you want children, Ros? And I'm like, I do. I really do. I can see myself like being like soccer mom, like head of the PTA meeting. I can see myself like, I'm busy now. Like I can see myself being like busy as a mom and doing everything, making cupcakes, designing like Halloween costumes. I can see myself doing it. But the challenge now is I like this, Ros, and I like working and I love my job and I love my business that I've built like from absolutely, that was my, that's my baby. And sometimes I guess the fear or the preconceived idea of me having a baby, I feel like is going to affect my job negatively. And then everyone else is like, no, Ros, what are you talking about? And I know it's probably just a really, if my mum listens to this show, she's going to like scream. She knows, she's like, Ros, can you stop? Like, she's just like, just have some babies, please. It's like, she'll hate me saying this, but here's the reality, guys. When you are a public figure, when you become well known, when you have a business out there, it's difficult to then say, okay, let's switch into mummy Ros. But who am I to know what happens and what doesn't happen? I've brought in a very experienced person in this space, someone who has done it all, someone who has raised a beautiful family and still managed to achieve a phenomenal career. Now, it's not J-Lo, but it's close, okay, guys? Right? If J-Lo can do it, we can all do it. But that's not realistic, right? We're looking at her on Instagram like, oh yeah, mate, but you've got loads of money and you've got probably 15 nannies taking care. But what about the real people, the everyday people? I want to hear today from Michelle Walsh from Together Money. Now, Michelle and I actually just crossed paths with each other very, very briefly. And didn't actually work together, but we just crossed. So she had just left as I was coming in, and then I left as she was coming in. I'm not sure if she's behind this whole like transaction of us coming in and out, but I think we're friends. That's not why we haven't worked together. But now we are working together in other different ways. So look, without further ado, I really just want to hear from Michelle now. How are you doing today, my love?
I'm good. I'm great. It's already a busy year. And when you mention kind of how you navigate and how you make the decision as to when the time is right, I don't think the time is ever really perfect. So just kind of from my background, I was a young mum. So I was in college, things happen. And I was in a situation that I guess my future perfect, what's going to happen in the world and the life of Michelle and the 5-10 year plan. It didn't necessarily pan out in the way that I expected. And funny, there was one comment that was made that was stuck with me for a long time because we're now 22 years later. And I'll never forget this, as somebody said to me, don't be a statistic. And I was really fuming at the time because I'm like, how dare you suggest that I'm going to be a statistic? But it wasn't easy because I was in college. And then I've decided, actually, I'm going to still be someone because, I like to work. I enjoy developing myself. So I very much started at the very base in the finance industry back in 2003, I think it was now. It was a while ago. And my daughter was only one at the time. It was a challenge because at that time, I was a single mum as well, a young single mum with a 1-year-old, and then starting into a career. So it wasn't easy, wasn't it? And I keep saying to everyone, it's never easy. It's never a simple task of managing what the right thing to do and the guilt as well. But I suppose it was a relatively, I had support of family. Not everybody has support of family either to kind of assist with care. Nursery costs, ridiculously expensive, which was a financial struggle for a single mum too. But I made it my point to prove, not necessarily to other people, but to myself, that I could do something regardless of being a young mum. So I've built from being, I guess, a telephone specialist, supporting people through customer services, and developed my career. Now head of intermediary sales at Together Commercial Finance. Now have 3 children. But there was a long period of my life where I was a single mum. So it was a challenge. And one of my team members now, she's pregnant. She's about 7 months pregnant. And when she first found out, bless her, she was completely overwhelmed because she said, how am I going to manage? And that's something that puts the fear of life into everyone. It put the fear of life into me, in particular, doing a field-based job. How was I going to manage with having a family, being away from the home? But you find a way. You find a way. If you want something, you find a way. And I think it's also expecting a kind of not putting too much expectations on yourself and accepting that everything's not going to work out perfectly. It doesn't.
No, that's the point, Michelle. I think if I, giving birth to my business as opposed to a human, that was never good. That wasn't the plan. That wasn't pre-programmed. That wasn't something that I had scheduled, and it certainly didn't feel like it was coming at the perfect time, right? At the time in which it happened, the circumstances were, okay, I'm losing a secure job. I'm losing, I'm losing salary here. I haven't got a fixed salary anymore. Oh yeah, let me just start a business. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Like it just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I know what you're saying. I don't get me wrong, like the fear of having a family isn't like something that keeps me up at night. It's not, it's just a stigma, isn't it? It's just feeling like, okay, this is my baby. Like, I think if I was employed, there's no perfect situation. If I was employed, it would still be hard to have a baby because then I would have to do I'd have to go back to work and work, my boss's hours. Whereas I can now choose my own flexibility, my own time. And, maybe now is easier than ever before. Right. So yeah, and that's why I thought it would be so valuable to bring someone like yourself on to speak about, what has it been like building a career within the property and financial space? And how did you pick this career? Why did you pick this career?
To be honest,
Yeah.
honesty is back when I was, I guess, 20 with a 1-year-old, whereas it was the best paid job around there at the time. And that was the reason why I got into finance, because it was, as I say, it was a starting level to get into a job. And that's the honest reason. I also love maths. I love technology, always have done. So it kind of made sense, but that was the reason. That's not the reason why I'm still here, because I've been in the finance industry for a long time, over 20 years now, and I've been working with property, as in working for lenders, since 2006 now. So that's also a long time. It's never about the money now. Actually, it's, for me, it's more of a sense of what value am I adding to the role? What value am I adding to the team that's surrounding me, whether or not that's a team that's reporting into me or the wider the team, the wider the business? For me, I've kind of never sat still. Yes, I've had a family at home, but I've always not necessarily wanted the next thing, the next job, the next career path. It's been more about challenging myself to see what value can I personally add to the business, and pushing myself constantly outside of my comfort zone and my boundaries to develop that. So I think when you mentioned about people asking you, when are you going to have a baby? I think that's a stigma, that there's assumption that women should always have a baby when they get married, or, there's this expectation. But actually, I think hopefully as we kind of progress through society, that there shouldn't be that expectation that people should have children. Everybody should, it's your own decision as to which avenue that you decide to proceed with. But it's certainly not easy. It has been a juggle, because there've been times, in fact, I was asked once, because I hadn't been to uni. For me, it was kind of the school of life is what I've been through. And somebody asked me once, this is going back about 6 years or so, I presume you're educated was a statement that was made to me. Which for me, it took me back a bit, because then it started thinking, oh, because I haven't been to uni, suggesting that I'm not good enough. Now, everybody's journey is completely different, but that doesn't mean that the level of experience that I had built up, that other people build up getting to this level, should be questioned. The ability should be questioned. It should be, what can you do today? What's your skill set today? And is it right for the job that you're applying for? But a few sweeping statements, but that have been made. But I think it's up to ourselves just to kind of have our own, I guess, security within us, just to keep plodding for the direction that we want to go. And if something changes, then you adapt.
Yeah. No, I think those 2 points you've made are really eye-opening. You know, you have people asking you really quite personal questions, or judging your status, whether you are educated or not. On both of those points, so to respond to the one about the questions, I think the people that have been asking me have actually been asking me in not in a imposing sort of way, not like, oh, come on, Ros, like, get some kids out. Like, they've not been like forcing the idea. I think actually it's been coming from a really loving place. And I've noticed that most of my clients, if not everybody, actually, all of my clients have a family, and I don't. And I think they wouldn't find it off-putting. Not that it matters, by the way, like whether they found it off-putting or not, that's not the point. But what I mean is, like, the stigma that maybe my fear might be, oh, clients might see me differently in a negative way. But actually, I think they're coming from a place of, actually, Ros, we have a family, we are juggling work and social media and our businesses and our friends. So I think they're not asking from a place of, oh, are you going to change, Ros? I think they just want, like, happiness for people. I think people who have a family and children, they know how loving that feels, and they know how and maybe they just see me and they think, oh my gosh, you'd be a lovely mother, and they're like, what, are you thinking of having children? Like, I do genuinely think people have been asking with love. So, and I have appreciated those conversations, because I have actually opened up to a couple of my clients, which, by the way, are all men. Like 99% of my clients are men, and they're all for the work-life balance and balancing children and work and life, and they are already of that mindset. And if they weren't of that mindset, then they're not my ideal customer. And I think same for you. Like, if you were working for someone, if you were employed, and that person wasn't respectful of your family and, you know, your personal requirements, then it's not the right place for you to work out, right?
And in fact, it was after that statement that I made a change with who I was working for, because actually, you know, I think you should certainly respect those individuals, treat people as you expect to be treated. And what I've said, you know, when I mentioned my team member who's currently pregnant, and I think she said to me, she's like, Michelle, you can do everything. I just see you just managing so much, but it's not easy. I think when those see the face of it, when you talked about jail, or you see that, you know, she's clearly seems to be acing everything that she does, right? But certainly, I'm sure it's not easy. The same goes to me. I constantly feel the mum guilt. I'm up in our head office more regularly now, and constantly I'm thinking, oh, how I know my children are coping perfectly fine, because I have a fantastic husband at home, that is a stay-at-home dad, and I actually see myself as lucky that I can do that. And it's not lucky that I'm a woman and have got a great man that stays at home. I think regardless of whether you've got a partner at home, whatever sex they are, female, male, non-binary, it doesn't matter. I think you should appreciate that somebody is supportive of you, so that you can go out and do what, you know, your career, I guess your passion to go out and do that. So I see myself as lucky that I've got that level of support at home, that he's fantastic with the children, so I can do that. But it doesn't mean that the guilt isn't there, right? When you're away from home 3 days a week, and then you're back, and then I guess they're so used to you not being there, it's a surprise to them when you're back at home. But all they ask me for is what soaps I'm going to bring from the hotels that I go.
Oh, well, look, if you feel mum guilt by leaving your little humans at home, I can appreciate that, because if I can feel mum guilt leaving my cat at home, I can't imagine what it's like leaving an actual human at home. Like, I actually miss my cat when I go away. And I don't have a stay at home husband. Like, he works hybrid and he works over, so sometimes we have to even like just keeping up with ourselves without having to actually look after another human. Just keeping up with ourselves is another balance. And like, just like you, I'm grateful to have found a partner that actually allows me to be as crazy as I am. Like, one minute I'm in, on stage speaking, next minute I'm like, oh no, I need to go to this event, or I'm at home in a podcast, don't disturb my shed, do not knock, do not call, do not so it's a balance. And I was actually speaking to another BDM from another lender who came on the show, who has a same-sex partner, so they're both female, and they had to approach their lender to say, well, what are you going to do if we have a baby? How are you are we both on maternity, or is one paternity, one maternity? That was interesting. I was like, yeah, how does that work? Because we're now, even in like contractual agreements, it's always about men and women, right? It's like, that's the conversation. It's like, well, we're so beyond that now. Like, it's not just about the
change.
There's so much change there. How do you see, if you don't mind me putting into the spotlight, obviously the company that you're representing, I mean, this is about you, Michelle, but I know you work at Together. How's their position when it comes to diversity, and how do you guys champion diversity?
I say it's a hot topic, but it's something that we just live and breathe. It's not something that's just for a specific time of year that there's a focus on DI. It's not like that. And I think the team that we have around us very much drive that. We have such a diverse team at Together, the entirety of Together. And it's actually just having that respect of understanding the differences of people's situations and the level as to where they're at, and their backgrounds, because it's having not just a focus on inclusivity, but it's also the focus on equity, as well as understanding that, depending on which level that you might actually, the level of support that you give somebody needs to be different. Not everybody, say at a BDM level, has the same level of personal, what's going on in their personal life at the same time as how they've got to that role. So I think it's constant awareness of that. But it's something, as I say, it's not something that's just a time in the week of the year for us. It's something that we live and breathe. And it's something that we discuss. So the senior leadership team, we're constantly aware of it. I'm surrounded by some fantastic team members, fantastic peers and colleagues. And I think coupled with, we were talking about managing workloads and everything and trying to juggle thousands of plates. I think it's with the great support, not just of family, but of colleagues surrounded us. That's also plays a huge part in being able to balance. But diversity, inclusion, equality and equity, it's something that I have seen a significant change in the industry as a whole. And in fact, I was on another event yesterday, and the majority of the panel were female, which was something great to celebrate, that change is happening. Not to say that it should just be all about females. It should be the right people, but everybody should be given the right opportunity to kind of shine.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like it is an important topic at Together, which is really positive to hear. Just to inspire people with some ideas, because perhaps they might be thinking, well, we want to be more diverse and inclusive. And what practical tips or what specific things, even if it's one or two things that you guys are doing that actually is celebrating that narrative and actually the evidence of the story, so what are you guys doing to actually showcase that?
Yeah, so something that we do throughout the year is celebrating different religions, for example, and making sure that we raise awareness of the different religions and give colleagues an opportunity to understand more. Give colleagues the opportunity to come in for we kind of do lunch events with colleagues to come in and share their experiences, share their background of their religion. with their colleagues, just to really increase the level of awareness of the differences between all of us and celebrate the differences between all of us. So that's one thing. Women in finance is a key one as well that we celebrate. So we had our event in September last year down in London, and we're going to have another one. I believe it's in March. We're just working through the details now. We're going to have another one in the north. And it's a key thing. We have fantastic females in our, in certainly at Together and across the industry. And Tanya Elmaz, who's my leader and certainly a role model for many of us. It's fantastic that she's leading the way within Together and outside of Together as well, of really kind of continue to not just raise awareness, because there is the awareness there, but to continue the movement.
Yeah. It's about actually having the conversations and showing up and being the face of this narrative. There's no point just saying, yeah, I'm aware that we need more women in finance. It's about that, exactly what this podcast is about. It's like, yes, there are loads of women in finance already. Let me show you who they are. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do with this podcast. It's not to say, I'm not saying I'm the first person to champion women empowerment in the financial industry. Of course I'm not. There are so many people that came before me that do that, men and women, by the way, as I'm sure you know. But this was just about having a platform, a visible way to show people outside and inside the industry of all the voices that are represented in the industry. So yeah, and it's great to also be a part of Together's Women in Finance events. So I came to your September one, and I'll be coming again in March. So I'm very, very excited.
That'll be fun. We're really looking forward to it.
Yes. Yeah, I'm so delighted to be a part of it as well. So thanks, guys, for having me again. Now, Michelle, obviously, we're going to talk offline a lot, and I can carry on the conversation with you, which, makes me pleased to be your friend. But others may have only just come across you for the first time. So if they want to connect with you and follow your journey and maybe ask a question, where's the best place for them to connect?
Best place is LinkedIn for me. I'm still haven't yet got up to, despite the fact I love technology, I still haven't got with the times of Instagram and the rest of social media. But LinkedIn is certainly the perfect place to kind of connect with me, because whilst I do a lot of kind of business-led content, I also put personal content on there as well, because I see it as my responsibility, not just to get more females, more girls into the industry. It's across the board, that regardless of where you started or where you are in your personal life, in your career, opportunities are there. You can be anything, in the words of Barbie.
Oh, yes, I love Barbie. And you're so right. I think I've just written down, I've been writing notes, by the way, if I don't look at you. And I just wrote down, I see it as my responsibility, because that's exactly what I say when I post. That's literally the ethos of Manuka Media, is it is your duty to champion and post and share and scream loud about what you are passionate about, because playing small never helped anybody. And you keeping to yourself your top tips or your journey is actually making yourself smaller, but you're not positively impacting anybody. So I really appreciate that you share that on LinkedIn, that you actually share, but here's what we're doing at Together. Look what a great product we've got. And this is the latest property development we've been working on. Oh, and look, I'm out with my kids. Like, it's really nice that you show that side, because that's part, most of my coaching is spent on that, trying to get the personality out of a brand, which is brilliant that you got, that you and many of you guys at Together are doing it, which is fantastic. Excellent.
I think you don't have to be polished all of the time, dear.
No, you're right. You don't have to be polished. Exactly that. That's not relatable. We're not always polished, are we? So, brilliant. Thank you for your candidness and your honesty. I really have appreciated speaking with you and sharing your voice with the listeners. So, guys, if you have been listening to this and have enjoyed it, please give Michelle a thumbs up. Show her your gratitude and your and I don't mean in the air. Don't just stick your thumbs in the air. I mean actually, like, click the button and actually click like, so that Michelle can see the love and support, because it is really nerve-wracking coming on these shows. But have you enjoyed it, Michelle?
I have thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think I did put a post on LinkedIn, to say that, there's this part of me that I like to be controlled. I like to be perfect and second guess and practice and rehearse. There was no rehearsal here. But yes, I have thoroughly enjoyed it. It's nice just to be me and not, just to have a normal chit chat, not business focused, normal chit chat.
Yeah.
Fantastic platform that you've got here, Roz. So
thank you. I really appreciate it. It's still growing and it will grow more, guys, with your help. If you are a loyal listener, but you haven't yet clicked subscribe on Spotify, I don't know about you. So please just kindly subscribe. And if you do enjoy these episodes, please give us a review as well. Like, you don't have to mention any specific guests. You can just review the podcast in general. We'd love to share the message. And and if you feel confident enough, even if you're not fully confident, because you never will be, but if you want your voice to be heard, please reach out. I would love to hear your story as well. Michelle, thank you one more time for being such money honey.